It's all right. We're on to the third and last label, and a bit of waffle and warning. Now, this is the sort of label you're more likely to see for sale on eBay. Let me breathe on it for you. There we go. See, it's a nice label. It even says that on it. This is the sort of thing that you get in the 19th century, early 19th century. It's just a plain little bit of silver. Now we've moved, you get rectangular with canted corners. This is rounded rectangular. And this is typical of a sort of late George III label, even though we're into the reign of George IV here. This is George Knight, London, 1823. Now, normally, if you want to buy wine labels like this, they're not very expensive. They're 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds. And they will have port engraved on them, or they'll have Madeira, which are the most common. However, there is a subset about collecting wine labels, which isn't about the maker, which isn't about the date, which isn't about where they're made. It's about what is engraved on the label. Now, there is something that exists, produced by members of the Wine Label Circle, which is called the Master List. And on this Master List, if you're a member and you get a copy, it will name and list every variation of every name seen on every wine label that they have come across in all their decades of collecting combined. When I found this label many, many years ago, it will be on there now, I promise you. But when I found this label, nice was not on that list. And I must confess, I still don't know what nice... I know what nice is. It's the opposite of naughty. But as a beverage, I don't know what nice is. It's very obscure. You often get regional beverages that people don't know about. Or you get odd spellings. Now, the thing to be aware of is that when you get a unique or unseen name like this, it is very rare. Again, my God, everything he's got is very rare. Well, it is. This is what happens when you get old and you've sold everything else. So this is not a £40 wine label. This is a £400 or £500 wine label, because there is not another... There isn't another, I can genuinely say, there isn't another nice wine label in the world. Only this one. The thing, however, you have to be aware of is flooding. And that can be a bitter experience. You can take a label that's engraved port. And I think these things happened really quite genuinely to begin with, when people had got tired of drinking port. They'd gone on to another generation. They were drinking gin and whiskey. So they would flood this engraving with silver, and they would polish it down. And that would make it flat and thick again. And then the silversmith that did it will engrave another name over it. Gin, whiskey, you know, what is it? Alcopops, whatever. But of course, whilst that was done initially by Victorian silversmiths honestly, just to repurpose a label, it then became the case that dishonest souls would do it to put rare names on. Now, there is a telltale sign, and it involves breathing, which is good because we all do it. You can see... You can only see the name and the silver surface there. Flooding original engraving will always leave a ghost impression of that engraving. You can't get away from that. So you have to look through the initials, because obviously that new name will be over that old engraving, but you will always see a little bit of it. So do be aware of flooded wine labels, and often the ones that you'll see on something like eBay or on in sort of dodgy auctions at the bottom of boxes will be re-engraved ones. Also, a warning to any prospective buyers, and this, don't be scared, but in the last 2 or 3 years, there has been one chap in particular making these, I'm afraid, from old discarded bits of silver, largely unmarked, always sold, I'm afraid, on one of those internet auction sites. So if in the last 2.5 years you think you've had an absolute wonderful bargain and bought a very rare unmarked wine label online, you've probably bought one of his, shall we say, pastiches of an early label, particularly this sort of period, particularly source labels, because whilst you have labels like this for decanters, for wine bottles, you also have smaller labels, miniature versions of these made to go around little condiment bottles on frames to tell you if it's got soy or cayenne or ketchup or mushroom sauce or garlic in it. And they became, about 5 or 10 years ago, very collectible, very valuable, very small things. They are largely unmarked, unfortunately. So you have to know what you're looking at, and be circumspect. Or, as in the case of these three, buy hallmarked examples that you can be certain of. Well, that's just a dip, a toe in the ocean that is wine labels. We will return. I've always got my eye out for a nice wine label, particularly a nice one. And as I say, these tremendous rarities, I mean, it's quite ridiculous. It's probably some of the rarest wine labels in the world. But these tremendous rarities are, I will part with them. I won't give them away, but I will part with them for the right money. They are available. But we'll get back and we'll see what else we can confound you with next week and startle you and amaze you. But hopefully you've enjoyed Wine Labels Parts 1 and 2. And you've heeded my warning about naughty fellows with engraving tools and hammers and all sorts of things. And they are fairly churning them out at the moment. So, beware. And so until next week, goodbye and good hunting.